quest for self-knowledge. What kind of person are you and I really? What kind of community, what kind of nation are we really? Do we have the courage to look ourselves in the mirror candidly, critically, honestly, and acknowledge the underside, the night side of ourselves, the human predicament, American democracy, the world? William Butler Yeats is right when he says it takes more courage to dig deep into the abyss of one's own soul than it does for a soldier to fight on the battlefield. And you can't talk about race and race matters and diversity without wrestling with the legacy of white supremacy, in which it takes such tremendous courage to think critically about ourselves. That race is not some ghettoized peripheral issue. It has to do with the quality of persons that we think we are, the quality of American society that we think we are, and in the end, the quality of the species, humanity as a whole. Now, I'm sure many students here at this grand university will never forget those moments in which you look closely at your assumptions and presuppositions and recognize that your worldview rests on pudding. That's one of the differences between education and credentialization. That's one of the differences between acknowledging change, transformation, metamorphosis as a result of critical thinking and critically engaging the underside of who you are, the underside of American democracy. And yet at the same time, we recognize that it's so easy to fall back into those habits of thinking and expectation and orientation, business as usual. Now, granted, Socrates, like Jesus, never wrote a word, and I don't encourage that for undergrads or graduate students here. University of Washington, write your papers, put forward your nuanced formulations and sophisticated interpretations, adduce your evidence, draw your valid conclusions. Hope your professors understand the argument. And it's not really true, of course. Socrates did write at the very end of his life in prison a hymn to Apollo and versified the fables of Aesop. He began to take seriously that voice that he heard throughout his life. Socrates practiced music. Socrates practiced music. Maybe you need some art to free you from the tyrannical rule of reason that you think results in the level of self-mastery and control that allows you to control those deep appetites. What's fascinating about Socrates, and it's pointed out by Leo Strauss in his 1958 lectures, University of Chicago, on the problem of Socrates, Socrates laughed once. If we take seriously the four sources that render the agent of Socrates, Plato's dialogues, profound, often unpersuasive, Xenophon's less profound but fascinating dialogues, of course, the satirical depiction of Socrates in the Clouds by Aristophanes, and of course Aristotle's cold and disinterested analysis of Socrates' views. But he laughed once when he was asked, "How should we bury you?" And he said, "Anyhow, if you can catch me." But that's interesting to me. He laughed once, and not only that, but we never find that he wept as much as once. No tears. Married to Xanthippe, 3 sons, no tears. As important as thinking critically is in relation to wrestling with the legacy of white supremacy, the Socratic embodiment of the legacy of Athens is a necessary but not sufficient condition for wrestling with race. And that's why I take seriously the legacy of Jerusalem. Jeremiah wails and Elijah cries and Jesus weeps because they love so deeply, they care so much.